Welcome everyone to another episode of the Shaman's Way podcast. As always, this episode comes from the teachings of our amazing friend and shaman in residence, Cricket. We hope you're enjoying these podcasts as much as we enjoy making them, and I'd like to take just a moment to ask you if you would please leave us a rating and a comment in iTunes or whichever podcast player you're listening to us from. Giving us a rating and sharing this podcast with others is the biggest way you can tell us that you like our show. Now, without further ado, on with the episode.
Hello and welcome to the ongoing explorations of shamanism through the wickedly, shamanic mind of Miss Cricket myself. What we are going to do today is discuss, or what I'm going to do today, and you're going to do today is listen, is discuss boundaries. Boundaries are very important aspects of any type of work. And I think when we work in spiritual groups, it's very important to make sure that we understand how we have boundaries, what are healthy boundaries, what are not healthy boundaries, and those sorts of things. Establishing healthy boundaries and enforcing them allows you to step confidently into your authentic self. That authentic self I've talked about in other podcasts, and if you're not familiar, it is a merging with the self that is the true self, and it's a short journey with rattles, and your intention is to meet and to merge with your authentic self. By breaking down the authentic self, meeting the authentic self, we're breaking down our differences to cross emotional and spiritual distance between us. Understanding language in all of its forms truly is our partnership to the world. And this is our story. This is our journey. And along the way, we will all be pushed, pulled, and perhaps even somewhat enlightened. Each of us is truly unique, and how we relate to the world truly is unique to ourselves. It is the individual experiences which give us the fuller picture of that whole. It is the critical aspect that each of us have our own thoughts and our own feelings, and each of us also take responsibility for our actions. My journey through shamanism has been one of pushing through my boundaries and barriers to understand my deep, true self. And this is a lifelong journey. Boundaries, for me, they are really, truly, they're as tangible as a Chinese wall, and they are simply as abstract as the veil between the worlds. I have spent time, and I encourage you to spend time, or spend more time, exploring your own boundaries, the emotional boundaries, the physical boundaries, the spiritual boundaries. We are more secure when exploring other less tangible boundaries. Examples. Dogs. Many dog lovers out there. They love you whenever, however, and even if you're not feeling very lovable. They have very close boundaries. They will awaken, jump off the bed just to follow you to the bathroom. Cats, they love you. Sometimes, maybe. Well, yesterday was good enough, right? Cats truly have more distant boundaries. As extreme as that example is, there are many types of boundaries. We have leaky ones. Those that share inappropriate information. We have absorbent ones. These are when we are taking on another person's mood or energy. So if you're married or with a partner of some sort, that's that aspect. It's also empath, being an empath, but it is also an absorbent boundary. Distant boundaries, very wide boundaries. And these boundaries can lead you to be neglectful or even abandon or be abandoned because you have distant boundaries. Close in distance, so they invade a space demanding personal information and yet sharing none. I call that being very personal in an impersonal manner. One of the boundaries are those who are estranged from life. The individuals that we all meet who are very negative, nothing seems to ever be right, nothing is ever right, rigid, unable to experience new ideas. Another boundary is being too flexible, the chameleon, the ultimate or the avid mask wearer. We have enmeshed boundaries. Where does one end and where does one begin? We have that codependency. These are just a few boundaries, and we can have different boundaries at the same time. As an example, we have different boundaries. We have different boundaries with our closest friends than we do with our co-workers. We have different boundaries with our closest friends and perhaps with our estranged cousin. It is unavoidable. We're all going to feel differently about each other. It is a gift that each of us can give the other to be aware of our boundaries and to work from that authentic self, that centered self, that self of I know who I am and therefore I can mindfulness. And I know in many traditions, Buddhism is one, this would be, the other way around. But focus is paying attention to what goes on inside the body, where mindfulness is paying attention to what goes on outside and around the body. Understanding our boundaries, that requires both focus and mindfulness. Learning to set healthy boundaries takes time, and it is a process. It is not an event. For myself personally, it's an ongoing process. Learning to set physical boundaries with people in my life helps me to establish a really safe place to communicate. I'm imprinting my energy, or we're imprinting our energy onto sacred space or our space. We're establishing boundaries of personal safety. So when you come into your home, you may have that experience that this is your safe. Into your car, you may have that if your home is not that safe, or if you have a really loud and boisterous home. These are just establishing boundaries of personal safety. We also have emotional boundaries. Now, emotional boundaries, I think they define the self. Assaults to boundaries threaten the self. We have to keep in mind that one's unique self we're all made up of complex ideas, feelings, values, wishes. We have a unique perspective that is duplicated by no one. Emotional boundaries help protect this unique complexity of the individual. What strengthens emotional abilities? Certainly the right to say no, but the freedom to say yes also. Respect for feelings. Respect for feelings. We support our personal process. These are things that support or strengthen our emotional boundaries. Acceptance of differences. Enhancement of uniqueness. Permission of expression. So what harms emotional boundaries? I'm sure you can think of some. Ridicule, contempt, derision, sarcasm, mockery, belittling, stifling communication, insistence on conformity, arbitrariness, the need to overpower, heavy judgments, any kind of abuse, abandonment, threat, insecurity. In shamanism, a really important part of our work is removing our false masks. For me, masks is simply just another word for boundary. We are on one hand protected, but on the other hand, if you think about it, we're also very vulnerable. Masks can be created for events, such as when we're asked to be or expected to be someone we're not. Maybe we're not comfortable being the MC for a wedding, and yet we have to, so we create that mask. Sometimes masks can be worn when we're denying our own physical comforts. Someone says, "Are you cold?" And, "Oh no, I'm not cold," when in fact you're actually freezing. This sends an express letter to ourselves that we're not important enough to get our basic survival needs even met. That's a pretty interesting low boundary. Masks take on personalities of their own. In ceremony and in ritual, when we don a mask or create a mask, we certainly imbibe that mask with a personality of its own. It is possible spiritually that we can attract like energies to the mask that we create. The longer we deny our true self, the further out of touch we are with our true, authentic self. Taking good care of ourselves is incredibly strengthening and certainly promotes intactness. Now, I believe that emotional boundaries are constantly changing. We constantly revisit, renew, or release strongly held wounds, such as, if we have ever been really surprised as a kid by a ghost, you may have grown up and you had a fear of ghosts, but your true self is a medium, but you're terrified or reluctant one time. So the closer we move towards uncovering that core self, that merged self, that who we really are, the quicker we can challenge the preconceived notions others may have of us, or better yet, how about those preconceived notions we have of ourselves? I can't do that. I'm not able to do that. I'm not smart enough to do that. I'm not fast enough to do that. Whatever our limitations are. So we want to explore the emotional boundaries within the body. And one of the ways that I, allow you or ask you to think about it is when you feel you're around somebody who drains you or upsets you, someone with whom you feel you could lose yourself. So think about that for a moment. Think about someone who, just take a moment and take a breath in and out. And sit, and if you have the possibility to close your eyes. And draw to your attention, your mind's eye, the face of that person. How does this feel in your body? Where do you feel this in your body? How does it feel in your mind? How does the presence of this person affect you? Take a breath in and out. Can you feel it in your body? What emotion could be possibly attached to that emotion? That person makes you feel scared. Do you feel confused, insignificant? Person makes you feel joyful. Perhaps you feel amused or stimulated. If that person makes you feel sad, that draining person, underneath that sadness, is there guilt, shame, depression, inferiority, inadequacy, miserable, bashful? If they make you feel mad, are you hostile? Are you hateful, critical, skeptical, frustrated, furious, jealous? These are some of the emotions that we feel. These are some of the words that we can use. Now, the emotions that I just brought to your attention, one of the things, I'm going to borrow someone else's idea to use, that the image of your body is like a car with a dashboard full of warning lights. By identifying the emotional response just identified, you have seen the check engine light for your personal boundary system. It's a security system warning that your personal energy field has been breached and you're letting stuff in that isn't yours. So think about that. Just by identifying that emotional response, you have seen your own body respond. You're letting this in. As a spiritual practitioner or spiritual warrior, we understand how important it is to pay attention to our boundaries. When our boundaries are weak, unguarded, or unclear, we let in all sorts of things that aren't actually ours. And we give away our own personal energy consciously. So if that person is draining you, we've given away our own energy and we've possibly accepted things that are not ours. This means, if we look at it from, just a very practical perspective, you're dealing with a breach of your energetic security system. This is a leak of your own personal energy. You're looking at warning signs indicating that some work needs to be done. Some boundaries need to be shored up. You need to return to center. Building boundaries, it truly is like any muscle or practice. The more you work with it, the better it serves you. Healthy boundaries protect without isolating. They contain without imprisoning, and they preserve our identity while permitting external connections. Good boundaries make good neighbors. Now, there are at least 100 theories on what emotions are, defining them. Some of the theories are even very interesting. We're not all here to agree on what they are, those emotions. Indeed, we probably won't. However, by identifying them, hearing some of them, can this allow you to consider the possibility that we have a difference between. Therefore, each of us feels our boundaries different. We perceive that we are expecting based on what we know. All we are doing is delving deeper into what each one of us knows. The topic of the mindfulness and the focus is an interesting concept in the way that the focus on what's going on inside the body. This is one of the ways that I really was able to move through what it is that goes on inside my body. And mindfulness is paying attention to what goes on outside or around the body. When I am in centered space, in good space, my body is calm, my body is relaxed, and I'm able to pay attention to what goes on outside my body. But I don't have to pay attention to what goes on outside my body in a manner that is, how can I put it, in a manner that is in alert awareness or in, conscious awareness or searching the room. When I feel out of sorts, sometimes when we're spiritual warriors and we recognize that something isn't quite right, we don't know that we're in battle, quote unquote. Sometimes it is so subtle that things are going on, that our boundaries are being breached, that all we know is that something just doesn't quite feel right. And that is when I take the opportunity to do the breath, to focus where in my body does it not feel right? How does it not feel right? Does my body shake? Does my body have a tingle in it? Does my body feel nothing at all? Am I making this up? Is my anxiety or my brain or my desire to find something that isn't there, is that working overtime? Paying attention to how we respond is part of the practice of exercising and becoming in tune with your boundaries. If I find that I am sitting with it in my third chakra, so around my sternum, that's my power center. So how can I interpret this? Obviously, I'm having a leak in my power center. So how would I, in that moment, how would I shore that up? How would I make that stronger? How would I create my own boundary? How would I make that stronger? How would I create my own boundary? If there isn't an opportunity or there isn't a need to say something, so I don't have to actually speak my boundary because this is a sensation I'm having or something that I'm witnessing is making this occur for me, then I take that moment and I breathe into it. And I really look at what the color is. What is it associated? What is associated with that part of the body? Are there organs associated with that part of the body? Is it my emotional gut that's ringing? Is it, or my gut brain that's working? Is it my heart brain that's working? Is it my head brain that's working? Which of my brains are being stimulated by this awareness of my boundary? Other times, I feel my boundaries are effusing love and good energy, and I feel my love and good energy, and I feel my boundaries could willingly and joyfully encompass the entire world, at least maybe just in my imagination. And that is a healthy boundary. That is a healthy emotional boundary. I am connected to source. I'm connected to whatever inspires me. And from that place, and not from a place of my own internal well, I give my energy away or allow my body to be a conduit for the energy that's moving through. Other times, especially if you are an empath, we feel things that are not ours in our body. And that's where it is important to know the boundary work and to know where is your personal space and where is the personal space of the person, the thought. That's an important aspect as well. Boundaries are not a simple XYZ, ABC. They're really unique to each and every one of us. We have all very unique experiences. So how do I fix that? One of the ways, for me, I'm going to go back to my third chakra. If I feel that there is a tension or a vibration in my third chakra, I take a breath and I connect with the guardian for that particular chakra. And that's a series of journeys that I have taught and for a number of years. And those journeys are specifically to meet each guardian for your chakras. So you have a guardian for the first, second, third, all the way up to the seventh chakra. If I feel that my energy center, my power center is vibrating or is low, what I do is I take a breath and I connect to the guardian that lives in my third chakra. And for me, it's a pronged antelope from southern Alberta. And one of the ways that I have learned to create space is while I am visioning and consciously, use my hands and I push the sky as high as I can so that the space, the world that the antelope is living in has room. Do you get where I'm going? So we create room. If my heart feels closed or feels guarded, one of the ways that I like to break that is to take my hand and do a heartbeat with my hand as though my chest is a drum. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, or you could go boom, 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 and feel that energy of the heart opening up, connecting, and of the heart opening up, connecting, and imagine the boundary, the shell, the hardened armor that we have around the heart, that with each beat, boom, 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 that we have is the opportunity for the heart to actually expand itself, open itself, feel braver, or just have room. If you're having an anxiety attack, or if you're feeling heartbroken. When you're heartbroken, sometimes your heart literally hurts. You are literally hurt. And from here, by allowing vibration to move through the body, and perhaps sounding out the sound of the heart, we give the heart permission to create more space. I also believe the physical action of pounding or hitting that physical part of the body sends a message to the conscious mind, for the conscious mind to allow itself to break that shell. You're bringing attention to something. So often if we need to pay attention to something, we need to look at something. So our focus is on how does our heart feel? How are we working with our heart? Our mindfulness is paying attention to what's going on around the physical body. So our hand, although a part of the physical body, is affecting the physical body as well. The sounds we make, that manifestation, the creation, sound as being a form of creation. So to make the sound of the heart, to create perhaps a song for your heart, or a hum for your heart if you're uncomfortable with making loud noises yet. That allows the heart in and of itself to expand and to become larger. So we're giving the body the ability to imagine itself in a different way. So when we have and we come across the different forms of emotion, or the different weightiness of emotion, if we are in a skeptical or critical place, opposite of that is a thankful place or a nurturing place. Can we change our thinking? If we are in an inadequate or lonely space, perhaps the opposite of that lonely space, perhaps the opposite of that would be we are in a sexy place and we are in a fascinating place. If we're feeling rage or we are feeling furious, perhaps the opposite of that is that we are feeling hopeful and we are feeling appreciated, we are feeling valued. This helps change our boundaries as well. The perception that we have of ourselves changes our boundaries. That perception we have of ourselves as being raged or furious or skeptical or bewildered, if we change the perception and believe that ourselves as relaxed, responsive, serene, thankful, trusting, appreciated, hopeful, energetic, playful, extravagant, delightful, perhaps we wouldn't wear as many masks. Perhaps we wouldn't have to have enmeshed boundaries if we were looking for a way to experience and explore ourselves. Perhaps if we're not estranged from life and that's not our boundary, perhaps we are not rigid. We become less rigid. Perhaps we're able to experience new ideas. If we have a close and distant relationship, maybe we can tap into that boundary of vulnerability, or that boundary that keeps vulnerability at bay, so that instead of demanding personal information, you can actually turn around and share some, that you're not afraid to be who you are. So that tight, very tight personal boundary can become perhaps a little larger and encompass more of the world. There are many ways to look at the relationship of self to the world around us. Again, I really stress that we're all really unique. and how we relate to the world truly is unique to each of us. It is our individual experience. We get a picture of the whole. It is critical that each of us do have our own thoughts and feelings, and that each of us does take responsibility through our actions. It is my hope that you push your boundaries through your exploration of your spirit, that you push your barriers through the exploration of spirit, and truly move towards understanding your true self, your deeper self, which is a lifelong journey. Remember, so sometimes when you close your eyes and you try to find what it is that's disturbing you, perhaps you won't be able to pinpoint it. Maybe there's something just niggling at the back of your brain, and maybe you have to let it go so that it can percolate and perhaps come to the surface in illumination. When we explore ourselves emotionally, physically, and spiritually, we do become more secure. We do become more confident in ourselves. When we are more secure with our place within our own body, we become more secure within our place within the structure of our society, the structure of your family. And if you are in situations where you are not safe emotionally, physically, and spiritually, then I encourage you to find ways in some form or other that will help you to establish safer boundaries and to value yourself enough to have the right to safe and sacred boundaries. The masks that we wear, they are truly another form of boundary. Perhaps you could go around without that work mask one day and bring your home mask to work, or your home self to work. Maybe one day around your family that doesn't want to hear about your interest in spirituality, maybe that one day you can put some personal energy and some words and communication. Strengthening our boundaries is communication. Strengthening our boundaries is the right to say no, but again, that freedom to say yes. That freedom to not be afraid to experience, express, and share who you are. Thank you for listening to this exploration of boundaries, and I look forward to our very next meeting. I wish you a lovely morning, day, evening, whatever time it is for you. And until the next time, I really do appreciate and thank you for listening to our ongoing relationship to spirit and to exploring ideas together. Bye for now.
Thank you again for joining us here on the Shaman's Way podcast. If you have any questions, would like to make a request for a future episode, or if you're looking for other shamanic resources, including free drumming tracks, please visit us at shamansway.net. Until the next episode, be well, everyone.